The alarm bells rang through the command center of Station Alpha 7. Red lights flashed on every screen as Admiral Taman rushed to his station. His boots clicked against the metal floor as officers ran to their positions. Something big was happening. Report, Admiral Taman called out to his crew. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had served the Galactic Council for 30 years and had never seen anything like this. Lieutenant Dongwu looked up from his console. His face was pale and his hands shook slightly. Admiral, we have a massive ship approaching the neutral zone. It's moving at impossible speeds. How massive? Admiral Taman asked as he walked over to look at the screen. Sir, it's 3 times larger than our biggest dreadnought. The energy readings are off the charts. I've never seen anything like it. Admiral. Taman stared at the display. A large dot moved across the star map faster than any ship should be able to travel. The computer showed energy levels that made no sense. This ship had more power than their entire defense fleet combined. What species is it? He asked. Unknown, sir. It doesn't match any ship in our database. The design is completely alien to us. Admiral Taman felt a cold fear in his stomach. In all his years of service, every species they met followed similar ship designs. Clean lines, smooth surfaces, and elegant curves. This ship looked different. It looked angry. Get me Captain Yuna, he ordered. Captain Yuna was the best pilot in the fleet. She commanded the reconnaissance squadron that handled first contact with new species. She was brave, smart, and careful. If anyone could figure out what this ship wanted, it was her. Captain Yuna here, came her voice over the communication system. Captain, we have an unknown vessel approaching. I need you to take your squadron and make contact. Be careful. This one feels different. Understood, sir. My ships are ready to launch. Admiral Taman watched on the main screen as Captain Yuna's squadron left the station. 5 small ships moved toward the unknown vessel. They looked like toys compared to the massive ship approaching them. On her ship, Captain Yuna checked her instruments. She was a woman in her 30s with black hair tied back in a neat bun. Her uniform was clean and pressed. She believed in doing things the right way. Lieutenant Dongwu, what are you reading on that ship? She asked her science officer. Lieutenant Dongwu was the same officer who had first spotted the ship. He had requested to join the mission because he wanted to study this strange vessel up close. Captain, the readings are incredible. This ship appears to be using nuclear fusion as auxiliary power. Auxiliary power? Most of our ships use fusion as their main power source. That's impossible, Captain Yuna said. What could they be using for main power? I don't know, Captain. The energy signature is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's raw and powerful. Almost primitive, but incredibly effective. Captain Yuna felt nervous. In her 10 years of first contact missions, she had met dozens of species. They were all similar in their technology and their peaceful nature. This felt different. Open a communication channel, she ordered. Use standard first contact protocols. The communication officer nodded and began transmitting. The standard message was simple and had worked with every species they had met. It offered friendship and peaceful exchange of knowledge. They waited. Space was quiet except for the hum of their ship's engines. The unknown vessel continued to approach without slowing down. Captain, the communication officer said, we're receiving a response. Put it through. The voice that came through their speakers was deep and rough. It spoke in broken galactic standard as if the speaker had learned it recently. This is Captain Jinho of the UHSF Retribution. We come seeking those who took our people. Captain Yuna and her crew looked at each other with confusion. The message was simple, but the meaning was clear. These beings were looking for someone, and they called their ship Retribution, unknown vessel. This is Captain Yuna of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet. Please state your intentions and the nature of your search. There was a long pause before the voice responded. 3 of your months ago, raiders attacked our colony ship. They took 50,000 of our people. We tracked them to this sector. We want our people back. Captain Yuna felt her heart sink. Raiders were a problem in the outer sectors, but 50,000 people was a massive number. She had never heard of a raid that large. Unknown vessel. Please identify the raiders. We will help you file a proper complaint with the Galactic Council. There are procedures for these situations. Another pause. When the voice came back, it sounded colder. We know who took them. We know where they are. We don't need procedures. We need our people. Lieutenant Dongwu was studying his instruments with growing alarm. Captain, he whispered, their weapon systems are powering up. What kind of weapons? She whispered back, I don't know. I've never seen energy signatures like these. They're not like our laser systems or particle beams. They're something else entirely. Captain Yuna felt sweat on her forehead. She had been trained for many situations, but this was new. These humans, if that's what they were, seemed angry and determined. Their ship was more powerful than anything she had seen, and they were looking for someone who had taken their people. Captain Jinho, I understand your concern for your people, but there are proper channels for handling these situations. The Galactic Council has procedures for dealing with raiders and recovering captured civilians. Your procedures, came the reply, failed to stop the raid. Your procedures failed to rescue our people. Your procedures are worthless to us. The words hit Captain Yuna like a physical blow. He was right. The Galactic Council's procedures were slow and careful. They were designed to prevent conflict, not to rescue people quickly. Captain, Lieutenant Dongwu said urgently, I'm reading massive energy buildup in their main weapon systems. Whatever they're planning to do, they're getting ready to do. Captain Yuna made a decision. All ships fall back to minimum safe distance. Do not make any aggressive moves. She opened the communication channel again. Captain Jinho, we want to help you. But you must understand that we cannot allow armed conflict in this sector. Please power down your weapons and accompany us to the nearest council station. We will work together to find your people. The response came quickly. Our people have been slaves for 3 months. Every day we delay, more of them die. We will not wait for your council to decide if our people are worth saving. Captain, her navigation officer called out, the ship is changing course. It's heading directly for the Vraktai system. Captain Yuna knew about the Vraktai. They were a primitive species that had recently developed space travel. They were known to engage in raiding activities, but the council had been trying to guide them toward more peaceful ways. Captain Jinho, the Vraktai are under council protection. They are a developing species. We cannot allow you to attack them without proper investigation. Then you will stop us? Came the cold reply, Captain. Yuna looked at her small squadron and then at the massive ship on her screen. She knew they couldn't stop this vessel if it wanted to continue, but she also knew her duty. We will do what we must to prevent conflict, she said. So will we, Captain Jinho replied. The communication ended. The human ship continued toward the Vraktai system. Captain Yuna knew she had to warn the council. Something told her that the galaxy was about to change forever. 3 months earlier, the colony ship New Soul drifted peacefully through space. It was a beautiful ship, painted white with blue stripes that reminded the passengers of their home planet Earth. Inside, 50,000 people lived in comfortable quarters as they traveled to their new home among the stars. Captain So Young walked through the observation deck where families gathered to watch the stars. Children pressed their faces against the large windows while their parents talked about the new life waiting for them. Everyone was excited. This was humanity's first attempt to build a colony on another world. Captain, came a voice behind her. It was Engineer Park G1, a young man with kind eyes and steady hands. He kept the ship running smoothly and safely. The navigation computer says we're 2 days away from the colony site. Good, Captain So Young smiled. The people are getting restless. They want to start building their new homes. Park G1 nodded and looked out at the families. My sister is down in Section C with her 2 children. She keeps asking when they can go outside and play on real ground again. Captain So Young understood. The ship was large, but after 6 months of travel, everyone wanted to feel dirt under their feet. and breathe air that didn't come from machines. The alarm changed everything. Captain, to the bridge. The voice came over the ship's communication system with urgency that made everyone stop what they were doing. 10. So Young ran to the bridge with Park Ji-won right behind her. When the doors opened, she saw her crew staring at their screens with fear in their eyes. Report, she said quickly. Captain, we have multiple ships approaching fast. They're not answering our communication attempts, said the communication officer. Captain So Young looked at the main screen. 6 dark ships moved toward them like sharks in the water. Their design was angular and threatening. These were not peaceful vessels. Are they council ships? She asked. No, Captain. The computer doesn't recognize the design. They're not in any of our databases. Captain So Young felt her stomach drop. The New Soul was not a military ship. It had no weapons and only basic shields. They were completely helpless. Try to contact them again. Tell them we are a peaceful colony ship with families on board. The communication officer tried for several minutes. The attacking ships got closer but never answered. Captain, the navigation officer said with a shaking voice, they're targeting our engines. The first blast hit the ship like a giant hammer. The lights went out and emergency power kicked in. People throughout the ship screamed as they were thrown to the floor. Damage report. Captain So Young called out as she pulled herself up from where the blast had knocked her down. Engine room is hit. We're losing power. Shields are down to 30%, Park Ji-won reported from his engineering station. Another blast shook the ship. This time the attackers hit the communication array. The New Soul was now blind and unable to call for help. Captain, the sensor officer said quietly, they're not trying to destroy us, they're disabling us. Captain So Young realized what was happening. These were raiders. They wanted the ship and the people inside it alive. Her blood turned cold. Send out an emergency signal on all frequencies. Tell anyone who can hear that the colony ship New Soul is under attack. I'm trying, Captain, but the communication array is badly damaged. I don't know if the message is getting through. The raider ships surrounded the New Soul like wolves around a wounded animal. Captain So Young watched helplessly as they attached docking tubes to her ship. All hands prepare for boarding. This is not a drill, she announced over the ship's internal communication system. Throughout the ship, families hugged each other tightly. Parents held their children and whispered that everything would be okay. Even though they knew it might not be true, the raiders came through the docking tubes wearing strange armor that covered their entire bodies. They were tall and moved with quick, jerky motions. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets, but their voices were harsh and commanding. All humans to the cargo bays. Move quickly or be hurt, one of them said in broken human language. Captain So Young tried to stand between the raiders and her people. These are peaceful civilians, families with children. Please take me instead. The raider leader looked at her with what might have been amusement. You all come? Good workers, good slaves, move now. The word slaves hit everyone like a physical blow. The children started crying. The adults looked at each other with horror. This was supposed to be a journey to freedom and a new life. Instead, it had become their worst nightmare. Park Ji-won grabbed Captain So Young's arm. Captain, we have to do something. There's nothing we can do, she whispered back. They outnumber us and they have weapons. If we fight, people will die. The raiders forced everyone to move through the ship toward the cargo bays. Families were separated. Husbands were taken from wives. Children were pulled away from their parents. The raiders didn't care about the crying and pleading. In the cargo bay, the 50,000 colonists were packed together like animals. The raiders counted them and made lists. They talked about the humans as if they were objects to be sold. These ones look strong. Good for heavy work, one raider said while pointing at a group of men. Small ones good for tight spaces. Cleaning and repair work, another said while looking at the children. Captain So Young felt sick. These monsters were planning to sell her people as slaves. She tried to remember everything she could about their attackers. If she survived, she would make sure someone knew what happened here. The raiders took groups of colonists to their ships. Families fought to stay together, but the raiders separated them without care. Children screamed for their parents. Parents begged to stay with their children. Part G1 was in one of the last groups to be taken. Before the raiders dragged him away, he managed to whisper to Captain So Young, "I sent a message to Earth before they destroyed the communications. I told them what happened. Someone will come for us." Captain So Young hoped he was right, but as she was pushed onto one of the raider ships, she wondered if Earth would even know they were gone. Space was vast and their new home was very far. From Earth, the raider ships left the new soul floating dead in space. Empty corridors that had been filled with laughter and hope now held only silence. Personal belongings were scattered on the floors where families had been torn apart. But Park Ji-won had been right. His message did reach Earth on Earth in the headquarters of the United Human Space Force. Commander Yoo-jin received the emergency signal. She was a serious woman who had spent her life preparing for humanity's expansion into space. She read the message 3 times before she believed it. 50,000 people, she said to herself. Taken as slaves. She immediately called General Woo Jin, the head of Earth's military forces. He was an old soldier who had fought in the last wars on Earth before humans reached the stars. "General, we have a situation," Commander Yoo-jin said when he answered her call. "What kind of situation?" "The kind that requires immediate military response." "Sir, someone just declared war on the human race." General Woo Jin listened as Commander Yoo-jin read him the message from the new soul. His face grew darker with each word. "How long to convert the retribution from exploration to military configuration?" he asked. "If we work around the clock 72 hours, Commander Yoo-jin replied. "Make it 60, and Commander?" "Yes, sir." "We're not going to negotiate for our people. We're going to take them back." Commander Yoo-jin smiled grimly. She had been hoping he would say that the message was clear across all of Earth's military. 50,000 humans had been taken as slaves. The response would be swift, overwhelming, and final. The Galactic Council chamber was the most beautiful building on the capital world. It was made of white stone that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Inside, representatives from 100 different species sat in a great circle. They had gathered for an emergency meeting that no one had expected. Chairman Veltar stood at the center of the chamber. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and large eyes. His people had been the first to form the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago. They believed in peace, order, and proper procedures for everything. "We are here today because of a crisis," Chairman Veltar announced to the gathered representatives. "A new species has entered our space with weapons and demands. They claim that one of our protected species has taken their people as slaves." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Slavery was forbidden under galactic law, but some species still practiced it in secret. The Council usually handled these situations with careful investigation and slow diplomatic pressure. "The species calls itself human," Chairman Veltar continued. "They have sent an ambassador to speak with us. I have agreed to hear their demands, though I remind everyone that we do not negotiate under threat of violence." The great doors of the chamber opened and Ambassador Kyung-soo walked in. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and a calm face. He wore a simple black suit instead of the colorful robes that most ambassadors preferred. Everything about him was quiet and controlled. Ambassador Kyung-soo walked to the center of the chamber without hurrying. He looked around at all the different alien faces watching him. Some looked curious, others looked afraid. A few looked angry that a member of an unknown species dared to enter their sacred chamber. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, Ambassador." Kyung-soo began in perfect galactic standard. "I am here to speak for my people. 3 months ago, raiders attacked our colony ship. They took 50,000 men, women, and children as slaves. We have tracked these raiders to a species called the Vraktai." A representative from the Zephyrian delegation stood up. She had green skin and spoke in a high musical voice. "The Vraktai are a protected developing species. They are under council guidance as they learn to become peaceful members of galactic society. Ambassador Kyung-soo turned to look at her. His face showed no emotion, but something in his eyes made her sit down quickly. Protected, he repeated the word slowly. You protect a species that takes children from their families and sells them as slaves. Chairman Veltar raised his hand for silence. Ambassador, the Vraktai are indeed a developing species. Yes, they have some primitive customs, but we are working with them to change their ways. These things take time. How much time? Ambassador, Kyung-soo asked, cultural change is a slow process? We estimate that within 50 to 75 galactic cycles, the Vraktai will abandon their raiding activities completely. Ambassador Kyung-soo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very soft. 50 to 75 years. While my people work as slaves? While children grow up in chains? While families are torn apart and sold to the highest? Bitter, a representative from the Alteran system, spoke up. He was a large creature with 6 arms and a voice like grinding rocks. Ambassador, we understand your anger, but we must follow proper procedures. We cannot simply attack a protected species based on accusations. Accusations? Ambassador Kyung-soo asked. We have tracked the raider ships directly to Vraktai space. We have recorded communications between the raiders and Vraktai slave markets. We know exactly where our people are being held. Chairman Veltar nodded thoughtfully. This evidence will need to be reviewed by our investigation committee. They will need to verify its authenticity and determine the appropriate response. How long will this investigation take? Ambassador Kyung-soo asked. For a matter this serious, at least 2 full galactic cycles. Possibly 3 if the evidence is complex. Ambassador Kyung-soo closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, several representatives noticed that something had changed. The calm diplomat was still there, but underneath was something much more dangerous. 2 to 3 years, he said quietly. You want my people to wait 2 to 3 years while you investigate whether or not it's acceptable for children to be worked to death in alien mines. The chamber became very quiet. Even the representatives who had been whispering among themselves stopped talking. A representative from the Hegemony Coalition stood up. She was small and covered in fur with large ears that twitched when she was nervous. Ambassador, please understand. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for over 3,000 years. We have done this by following careful procedures and avoiding hasty actions. Your peace, Ambassador Kyung-soo said, is built on the suffering of those too weak to fight back. Your procedures are worthless to a mother whose child is being beaten by alien masters. Chairman Veltar tried to restore order. Ambassador, I understand your frustration. But we cannot abandon the principles that have kept the galaxy stable for millennia. Violence only leads to more violence. You're right, Ambassador Kyung-soo said. Violence does lead to more violence. The Vraktai committed violence against peaceful colonists. Now they will face the consequences of that choice. The representative from the Meridian Syndicate spoke. He was tall and thin with pale skin and no hair. Are you threatening to attack a council-protected species? Because if you are, the full force of the Galactic Defense Fleet will stop you. Ambassador Kyung-soo looked directly at him. The full force of your fleet is currently running away from one human warship. Shocked gasps filled the chamber. Representatives began talking all at once. Chairman Veltar banged his ceremonial staff on the floor to restore order. That is impossible, he declared. The Galactic Defense Fleet is the most powerful military force in known space. Was, Ambassador Kyung-soo. Corrected. Your Admiral Taemin learned that there is a difference between a military that maintains peace and a military that fights wars. A small device in Ambassador Kyung-soo's hand beeped softly. He looked at it and nodded. I have just received word. From my ship, he announced to the chamber. Your defense fleet has been neutralized. No ships were destroyed and no lives were lost because humans do not kill unnecessarily. But your fleet is no longer capable of fighting, the chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate action. Others called for evacuation of the capital world. Chairman Veltar banged his staff repeatedly until there was enough quiet for him to speak. This is an act of war against the Galactic Council. No, Ambassador Kyungsu said calmly, this is an act of rescue. We gave you a chance to help us save our people through your legal system. You chose to protect the rights of slavers over the lives of innocents. The Vraktai have rights under galactic law, the Zephyrian representative insisted. So did the 50,000 humans they kidnapped, Ambassador Kyungsu replied. But you seem more concerned with the rights of the kidnappers than the rights of their victims. Chairman Veltar tried one more time to regain control of the situation. Ambassador, if you attack the Vraktai homeworld, the Council will have no choice but to declare humanity an enemy of galactic peace. Ambassador Kyungsu looked around the chamber one final time. His eyes stopped on each representative as if he was memorizing their faces. Then I suggest you choose more carefully who you call enemy and who you call friend, he said. Because after today, this galaxy will know that humans protect their own, and anyone who harms our people will answer to us. He turned and walked toward the great doors. Just before he reached them, he stopped and looked back. You have 12 hours to release our people and return them to us. After that, we will come and take them ourselves. The doors closed behind him with a sound like thunder. The chamber remained silent for a long time. Finally, Chairman Veltar spoke to the assembly. Send word to all council worlds. Prepare for war. But deep down, many of the representatives wondered if they were already too late to prepare for anything. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride of Galaxies. Around him, the largest fleet ever assembled by the Galactic Council prepared for battle. 237 ships stretched out in perfect formation. Each ship was beautiful, with smooth curves and elegant designs that showed the peaceful nature of their builders. Admiral, his communication officer called out, we have visual contact with the human vessel. On the main screen, the UHSF Retribution appeared. It was ugly compared to the council ships. Where their vessels were smooth and graceful, the human ship was angular and brutal. It looked like it had been built for one purpose only, war. It's just one ship, Admiral Taemin said to himself. He had commanded fleets for 20 years, but he had never faced odds like this. 200 ships against one seemed impossible to lose. Lieutenant Dongwu looked up from his sensor station. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the human ship. Their weapons are charging. All ships, maintain formation, Admiral Taemin ordered. We will show them the proper way to conduct space combat. The galactic fleet moved forward in a beautiful display of coordination. Each ship knew its place and moved with the others like dancers in a ballet. This was how civilized species fought. When they had to fight at all on the Retribution, Captain Jinho watched the approaching fleet with calm eyes. He was a man who had fought in 3 wars on Earth before humanity reached the stars. He understood something that the aliens did not. There was no such thing as civilized war. Chief Weapons Officer Sung-ho, are all systems ready? Captain Jinho asked. Se Yuan-jeho was a young man with steady hands and quick eyes. He had trained on Earth's most advanced weapon systems before joining the Space Force. All weapons charged. And ready, Captain. Targeting computers are locked on multiple enemy vessels. Navigator Haewon, plot an attack course through their formation. Captain Jinho ordered. Navigator Haewon was a woman who had studied military tactics at Earth's War College. She understood how to use speed and surprise against larger forces. Course plotted, Captain. We'll hit them from 3 different angles in rapid succession. Captain Jinho nodded. Remember, our goal is to disable their ships, not destroy them. We're here to rescue our people, not start a galactic war. Unless they force us to, Sung-ho added quietly. Unless they force us to, Captain Jinho agreed. The battle began when Admiral Taemin gave the order to fire. The galactic ships unleashed their laser weapons in coordinated volleys. Bright beams of energy reached across space toward the human ship Dot, but the Retribution was no longer where the lasers were aimed. Navigator Haewon had executed a combat maneuver that the alien ships had never seen before. The human ship twisted. and rolled through space like a fighter craft, even though it was larger than most of the enemy vessels. Impossible, Admiral Taman breathed. A ship that size cannot move like that. Lieutenant Dongwu stared at his instruments in shock. Admiral, their maneuver should have torn their ship apart. The gravity forces alone should have killed everyone on board. What Lieutenant Dongwu didn't understand was that humans had built their ship differently. Where alien vessels were designed for comfort and elegance, the Retribution was built to survive. Its crew wore special suits that protected them from the crushing forces of combat maneuvers. The Retribution's first attack came without warning. Instead of energy weapons, the human ship fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speed. The kinetic rounds punched through the shields of 3 galactic ships as if they weren't there. Report? Admiral Taman shouted as his ships reeled from the unexpected attack. Sir, they're using kinetic weapons. Solid projectiles moving at near light speed. Our shields aren't designed to stop physical impacts at those velocities. Admiral Taman felt a cold fear in his stomach. In all of galactic history, no one used kinetic weapons in space combat. They were considered primitive and inelegant. But primitive didn't mean ineffective. The second wave of human attacks was even more shocking. Chief Weapons Officer Sung Ho launched what appeared to be small fighter craft from the Retribution. But these weren't piloted vessels. They were missiles with computer brains that learned and adapted as they flew. Incoming missiles, the tactical officer reported. I count 30-6. No, 40-2. Count keeps changing. How can the count keep changing? Admiral Taman demanded. Sir, the missiles appear to be splitting apart and reassembling themselves. They're avoiding our defensive fire and finding new attack angles. The adaptive missiles found weak points in the galactic ships that their builders never knew existed. They slipped through shield gaps and struck at critical systems. 12 more ships lost power and drifted helplessly in space, but the worst was yet to come. The Retribution's third attack didn't use weapons at all. It used the debris from the damaged ships as projectiles. Electromagnetic fields grabbed pieces of metal and hurled them at other vessels at impossible speeds. They're turning our own ships into weapons against us, Admiral Taman said in horror. Lieutenant Dongwu looked up from his station with wide eyes. Admiral, I'm detecting an electromagnetic pulse building up in the human ship. It's massive. EMP? That's impossible. No one uses electromagnetic pulse weapons in space. The humans do, sir. The pulse hit the galactic fleet like an invisible wave. 60 ships lost power instantly. Their computers crashed, their weapons went offline, and their crews found themselves floating helplessly in dark vessels. Admiral Taman realized that his beautiful, coordinated fleet had become a scattered collection of disabled ships in less than 10 minutes. The humans had taken apart 200 vessels with tactics that no civilized species would ever consider using. Sir, his communication officer said quietly, the human ship is sending us a message. Put it through. Captain Jinho's voice came over the communication system. Admiral Taman, your fleet is disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are safe but powerless. You have a choice to make. What choice? Admiral Taman asked, though he already knew he had no real options left. You can order your remaining ships to withdraw and allow us to rescue our people. Or you can continue to fight and force us to destroy vessels instead of just disabling them. Admiral Taman looked around his bridge. Half his instruments were dead from the electromagnetic pulse. His tactical officer reported that only 37 ships still had full power and weapons. How? He asked. How did you defeat us so easily? There was a pause before Captain Jinho answered. Admiral, your people have had peace for 3,000 years. You've forgotten what war really means. We learned to fight on a world where everything wanted to kill us. We perfected warfare while you perfected diplomacy. Your tactics are barbaric, Admiral Taman said. Yes, Captain Jinho agreed. War is barbaric, that's why we tried diplomacy first. But when diplomacy fails, we fall back on what we know best. Admiral Taman felt the weight of command pressing down on him. He had two choices: retreat and admit defeat, or continue fighting and watch his remaining ships get destroyed by an enemy that understood war in ways his people had forgotten. "All ships," he said quietly, "withdraw to minimum safe distance. Do not interfere with the human vessel." "A wise choice, Admiral," Captain Jin-Ho said. "When this is over, perhaps we can discuss better ways to keep the peace in this galaxy." The Retribution turned away from the broken fleet and headed toward the Vractai system. Behind it, Admiral Taman watched in silence as his perfect formation scattered like leaves in the wind. He had learned a hard lesson about the difference between maintaining peace and fighting for it. The humans, it seemed, understood both. The UHSF Retribution moved through space toward the Vractai home system like a predator hunting its prey. Behind it, the scattered remains of the Galactic Defense Fleet tried to understand what had just happened to them. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Jin-Ho studied the tactical display with calm eyes. "Navigator Hay-1, how long until we reach the Vractai system?" he asked. 6 hours at current speed, Captain," she replied. Navigator Hay-1 had plotted their course to avoid any remaining galactic patrol ships. The humans wanted to reach their people as quickly as possible. "Chief Weapons Officer Sung-Ho, what's the status on our captured alien technology?" Sung-Ho looked up from his workstation where he had been studying pieces of galactic equipment taken from the disabled ships. "Captain, their technology is interesting. Very elegant and efficient, but it's designed by people who never expected to fight a real war." Dr. Yoonji, the ship's xenobiologist, joined the conversation. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent years studying alien species before the colony ship was attacked. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, but they have almost no protection against physical impacts. Their weapons are precise but weak. Everything about their military is built for show, not for killing." Captain Jin-Ho nodded. "Can we adapt their technology to our systems?" "Already working on it," Sung-Ho said with a slight smile. "I've integrated their shield generators with our armor plating. We now have protection against both energy and kinetic weapons. Their targeting computers are also more accurate than ours, so I'm installing them in our missile systems." Dr. Yoonji pulled up a holographic display showing the Vractai system. "Captain, I've been studying intelligence reports on the Vractai. They're a primitive species that recently developed space travel. They believe that taking slaves from other species is a sign of strength and honor." "How primitive?" Captain Jin-Ho asked. "They still fight with blade weapons in personal combat. Their technology is centuries behind even basic galactic standards. But they're aggressive and they outnumber us greatly." Lieutenant Colonel Minho entered the bridge wearing full combat armor. He was the commander of the ship's marine unit, soldiers trained specifically for boarding enemy vessels and ground combat. His armor was black and covered with equipment that the aliens had never seen before. "Captain, my teams are ready for deployment," Lieutenant Colonel Minho reported. "We've studied the layout of Vractai ships and slave-holding facilities. We know where our people are being kept." "How many enemy soldiers are we expecting?" Captain Jin-Ho asked. "Intelligence estimates suggest around 10,000 Vractai warriors defending the slave compounds. They'll be armed with energy weapons and blade weapons. Our advantage is training, equipment, and the element of surprise. Double quotes. Dr. Yoonji brought up another display. "Captain, there's something else you should know about the Vractai. They believe that anyone who defeats them in combat has the right to rule them. It's part of their ancient culture." "Interesting," Captain Jin-Ho said. "That might be useful later." The Retribution dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vractai system. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the system as the alien defenders detected the human ship. "Captain," the communication officer reported, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from Vractai vessels. They're demanding that we identify ourselves and state our business." "Send them our response," Captain Jin-Ho ordered. The message was simple and direct. "This is Captain Jin-Ho of the United Human Space Force. You have taken our people as slaves. Return them immediately or face the consequences." The reply came quickly, filled with alien laughter and threats. The Vractai commander told the humans that their people were valuable property now and would never be returned. He also said that the single human ship would be easily destroyed by their defense fleet. "Captain," the tactical officer reported, "I count 47 Vractai warships moving to intercept us. They're older designs, but they have us outnumbered. Chief Weapons Officer Sung-ho, show them what human engineering can do." The battle that followed was completely different from the fight with the Galactic Fleet. Where the Council ships had been elegant and coordinated, the Vractai vessels were crude and aggressive. They charged at the Retribution like wild animals. Attacking a hunter, Sung-ho had spent the journey modifying the ship's weapons with captured galactic technology. The results were devastating. Human kinetic weapons combined with alien targeting systems struck the Vractai ships with perfect accuracy. The adaptive missiles, now enhanced with galactic computer systems, slipped through the primitive alien defenses like ghosts. "Enemy ships closing to boarding range," the tactical officer announced. "Let them come," Captain Jinho said calmly. "Lieutenant Colonel Minho, prepare your teams." The Vractai made the mistake that many aggressive species make when facing humans. They assumed that, because humans look smaller and weaker, they would be easy to defeat in close combat. They had never fought a species that had perfected the art of war over thousands of years. Lieutenant Colonel Minho's Marines met the boarding parties in the corridors of the Retribution. The Vractai warriors were large and strong, but they fought like individuals. The humans fought as a coordinated unit with tactics refined through countless battles on Earth. The alien warriors carried energy weapons that were powerful but slow to recharge. The human Marines carried rapid-fire weapons that could fire continuously. The Vractai wore heavy armor that protected them from their own primitive weapons. The human weapons cut through that armor like paper, but the real difference was in training. The Vractai fought with anger and pride. The humans fought with cold efficiency and perfect teamwork. Each Marine knew exactly where his teammates were and what they were doing. They moved through the ship's corridors like a single organism with many parts. "Boarding parties neutralized," Lieutenant Colonel Minho reported after 20 minutes of fighting. "No human casualties. 37 enemy warriors captured alive. Well done, Colonel." Now for the main event. The Retribution moved deeper into the Vractai system toward their homeworld. The planet was brown and red with large cities built around slave labor camps. Millions of beings from dozens of species worked in the alien mines and factories. "Captain," Dr. Yoonji announced, "I'm detecting human life signs in 3 major facilities on the planet's surface. The largest concentration is in the northern mining complex. Chief Weapons Officer Sung-ho, target the planetary defense systems. Disable them, but don't destroy the facilities where our people are being held." The Vractai had built their planetary defenses the same way they built everything else, big, crude, and aggressive. But their weapons were designed to fight other primitive species, not a ship equipped with advanced human and galactic technology. Sung-ho's modified weapon systems made quick work of the alien defenses. Kinetic rounds traveling at near light speed smashed through energy shields that were never designed to stop physical impacts. Electromagnetic pulse weapons shut down entire defense networks in seconds. "Planet's defenses are down, Captain," Sung-ho reported. "The way is clear for landing operations." Lieutenant Colonel Minho's Marines prepared for the most important mission of their lives. They would drop from orbit in armored shuttles and assault the slave compounds where their people were being held. Each Marine carried enough equipment and ammunition to fight through an army of alien guards. "Remember," Lieutenant Colonel Minho told his teams over the communication system, "our people have been slaves for 3 months. They're going to be weak, scared, and hurt. Some of them might not believe that rescue is real. Be gentle with them, but be ready to fight anyone who tries to stop us." The shuttles launched from the Retribution like metal meteors falling toward the planet's surface. Each one carried 20 Marines in powered armor that made them faster and stronger than any Vractai warrior. The aliens on the ground watched in terror as the human shuttles landed outside their slave compounds. They had never seen anything like the black armored soldiers who emerged from the landing craft. The battle for the slave compounds was brutal but brief. The Vractai guards fought with primitive weapons against soldiers who had trained for exactly this kind of mission. Human marines moved through the alien facilities like shadows, neutralizing guards and freeing prisoners with ruthless efficiency. When the shooting stopped, 50,000 human colonists were free. They were thin and tired, but they were alive, and they were going home. The rescue shuttles rose from the surface of the Vractai homeworld carrying precious cargo. 50,000 human colonists, thin and tired but alive, filled every available space in the transport ships. Captain Jinho watched from the bridge of the Retribution as the last shuttle docked with his ship. "All shuttles recovered, Captain," Navigator Hay-1 reported. "All our people are aboard and safe." Captain Jinho felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The mission was complete. The colonists were free. But he knew this was not the end of the story. Dr. Yunji approached his command chair with a medical report in her hands. She looked tired and angry. "Captain, you need to see this. The medical teams have finished examining our people." "How bad is it?" Captain Jinho asked, though he could tell from her expression that the news was not good. 1,700 people dead from overwork, malnutrition, and abuse. 3,000 more are seriously injured. Many of the children have been separated from their families for so long they don't remember their parents' names. Captain Jinho's jaw tightened. He had expected losses, but hearing the actual numbers made his anger burn hotter. And the Vractai responsible? The camp commanders and guards who directly harmed our people have been identified. The colonists remember their faces very clearly. Lieutenant Colonel Minho joined the conversation. His armor was still scorched from the fighting on the planet's surface. "Captain, what are your orders regarding the Vractai leadership? We have the planetary government building surrounded, but they've barricaded themselves inside." Captain Jinho looked at the main screen, which showed the Vractai capital city below. The alien government was probably hoping that the humans would simply leave now that they had rescued their people. They were wrong. "Open a communication channel to the planetary government," Captain Jinho ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of a large stone building. Several Vractai officials sat around a table, their faces showing a mixture of fear and defiance. The largest of them, presumably their leader, wore elaborate armor decorated with the bones of various alien species. "I am War Chief Greater of the Vractai Empire," the alien leader announced in broken galactic standard. "You have attacked our world without provocation. This is an act of war." Captain Jinho stepped forward so the aliens could see him clearly. "War Chief Greater, I am Captain Jinho of the United Human Space Force. You kidnapped 50,000 of my people and forced them to work as slaves. 1,700 of them died under your care. You declared war on humanity the moment you attacked our colony ship. Your people were weak," War Chief Greater replied with what might have been a sneer. "In Vractai law, the strong have the right to take from the weak. Your colonists could not defend themselves, so they became our property." Dr. Yunji moved closer to the communication screen. As a xenobiologist, she understood alien cultures better than most humans. "Captain, he's trying to use their cultural laws to justify what they did. In Vractai society, might makes right." "Is that so?" Captain Jinho asked calmly. "Then by your own laws, we have the right to do whatever we want with you. After all, we proved we are stronger." War Chief Greater's expression changed. He had not expected the human to understand their laws so well. You cannot apply our laws to yourselves. You are not Vractai. You applied your laws to humans who were not Vractai," Captain Jinho pointed out. "If your laws apply to everyone, then everyone can use them." Chief Weapons Officer Sung-ho stepped up beside Captain Jinho. "Captain, the planetary shields are still down. One surgical strike could eliminate their government building and everyone inside it." The Vractai officials began talking frantically among themselves. War Chief Gregtor raised his hand for silence and turned back to the screen. "What do you want from us, human?" he asked. "Justice," Captain Jinho replied simply. "The camp commanders who killed our people will be turned over to us for trial. Your government will pay compensation to the families of those who died. And you will never again take slaves from any species. Impossible!" War Chief Gregtor roared. The Vivraktai bowed to no one. "We are a proud warrior race." "You are a proud warrior race," Captain Jinho corrected. "Now you are a defeated species sitting in a building that I can destroy whenever I choose. Your fleet is scattered. Your defenses are gone. Your planet is at my mercy." Lieutenant Colonel Minho activated a tactical display that showed Vraktai military positions throughout the system. "Captain, our Marines have secured all major military installations. The few remaining Vraktai ships are fleeing the system. They have no way to resist our demands." War Chief Gregtor looked at the display with growing horror. In less than 6 hours, the humans had completely dismantled the Vraktai empires. Military power. What had taken his people centuries to build was destroyed in a single day. "You are demons," he whispered. "No species fights like this. No species is this efficient at war." Dr. Yunji spoke up. "Captain, I think he's beginning to understand what they're dealing with. The Vraktai have only fought against other primitive species. They've never faced a military force that was designed to fight and win wars." Captain Jinho nodded and turned back to the communication screen. "War Chief Gregtor, you have 1 hour to decide. Accept our terms and live, or refuse and face the consequences." "What consequences?" the alien leader asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. "The same consequences that face anyone who harms our people," Captain Jinho said quietly. "Complete and total destruction," the communication ended. On the planet below, the Vraktai government began arguing among themselves. Some wanted to fight to the death rather than submit to alien demands. Others pointed out that fighting was pointless when the enemy could destroy their entire world from orbit. 1 hour later, the communication channel reopened. War Chief Gregtor appeared on screen again, but he looked older and more tired than before. "We accept your terms," he said in a defeated voice. "The camp commanders will be surrendered to you. Compensation will be paid. And the Vraktai Empire will cease all slave-taking activities." "A wise decision," Captain Jinho said. "But understand this, War Chief, we will be watching. If we discover that any Vraktai ship has taken slaves from any species, we will return. And next time we will not be so merciful." Lieutenant Colonel Minho leaned forward. "Captain, what about the other slave camps? Our people weren't the only ones being held here." Captain Jinho had been thinking about this problem since the rescue began. The Vraktai had been taking slaves for decades. There were thousands of beings from dozens of species working in their camps and mines. "All slaves on this world will be freed," he announced to the Vraktai leadership. "You will provide them with transportation back to their homeworlds. You will also provide them with compensation for their suffering. That will bankrupt our empire." One of the Vraktai officials protested. "Then you should have thought about that before you started kidnapping people," Dr. Yunji said coldly. As the negotiations continued, Chief Weapons Officer Sungho monitored the space around the planet. Several ships had appeared at the edge of the system, but they were keeping their distance. "Captain," he reported, "I'm detecting Galactic Council vessels approaching. They're not moving to attack, but they're definitely watching us." Captain Jinho smiled grimly. "Let them watch. Let them see what happens when someone threatens human lives. Maybe they'll learn something about the difference between keeping peace and enforcing justice." The Retribution remained in orbit around the Vraktai homeworld for 3 more days while the alien government complied with human demands. Slave camps were opened. Prisoners were freed. Compensation was arranged. When it was over, the Vraktai Empire was no longer an empire. It was a broken species that had learned a hard lesson about the cost of cruelty, and throughout the galaxy, other species began to understand that a new power had emerged among the stars. a power that would not negotiate with slavers or tolerate the abuse of innocence. The humans had spoken, and the galaxy was listening. 6 months after the rescue at the Vraktai homeworld, the UHSF Retribution drifted in orbit around the Galactic Council's capital planet. The massive human warship cast a shadow over the beautiful white buildings below, a constant reminder that the galaxy had changed forever. In the council chambers, a very different kind of meeting was taking place. Admiral Taemin, the former commander of the Galactic Defense Fleet, sat across from General Wu Jin, the head of Earth's military forces. Between them lay the draft of a new treaty that would reshape how the galaxy handled threats to innocent civilians. The new patrol routes will cover all major shipping lanes, General Wu Jin explained as he pointed to a holographic star map. Human ships will work alongside council vessels to stop raiders before they can attack civilian targets. Admiral Taemin studied the proposed patrol patterns with the eyes of a professional soldier. In the months since his defeat, he had come to respect the human approach to military planning. Your ships are faster and better armed than ours. Why? Do you want our vessels involved at all? Because this isn't about human dominance, General Wu Jin replied. This is about protecting everyone. Your people know the galaxy better than we do. Your ships can go places where human vessels might not be welcome. Together we can build something better than either of us could manage alone. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Jinho reviewed reports from across the galaxy. In the 6 months since the Vraktai incident, word had spread quickly about what happened to species that harmed humans. 3 different raider groups had surrendered, without fighting when human ships appeared in their systems. Captain, Dr. Yoonji said as she entered the bridge carrying a data pad, I have the latest reports from the former Vraktai territories. The freed slaves are settling into their new lives. Most have chosen to stay and help rebuild the planet into something better. Captain Jinho nodded with satisfaction. What about the Vraktai themselves? They're adapting. The younger generation especially seems eager to leave their warrior culture behind. They're learning new skills and building peaceful relationships with their former slaves. Engineer Park Ji-won approached Captain Jinho's command chair. He had been rescued from the slave camps along with the other colonists, but he had chosen to join the crew of the Retribution rather than return to civilian life. The experience of being enslaved had changed him, giving him a fierce determination to prevent others from suffering the same fate. Captain, the new fleet construction is ahead of schedule, he reported. Earth has completed 12 new warships based on the Retribution design. Each one incorporates improvements we've learned from our encounters with alien technology. Good, Captain Jinho said. How long before they're ready for deployment? The first 4 ships will be ready within 2 months. Commander So Young will captain the lead vessel. Captain So Young, the former commander of the colony ship New Seoul, had also chosen to join the military after her rescue. Her experience as a prisoner had taught her that sometimes peaceful intentions were not enough to protect innocent people. In the council chambers below, the negotiations continued. Chairman Veltar, the head of the Galactic Council, was finding it difficult to accept the new reality. For 3,000 years, his people had maintained peace through careful diplomacy and slow, deliberate action. The humans wanted to change everything. These new protocols you propose are too aggressive, Chairman Veltar complained as he reviewed the treaty document. You want to give military commanders the authority to act without council approval in emergency situations. Ambassador Kyung-soo, the human diplomat who had originally delivered humanity's ultimatum, looked up from his own copy of the document. Chairman, with respect, your old protocols failed to prevent the kidnapping of 50,000 innocent civilians. They failed to rescue those people when they were taken. Sometimes emergency situations require immediate action. But who decides? What constitutes an emergency? Chairman Veltar asked. Who determines when military action is justified? The same people who see children being sold as slaves and decide that it needs to stop immediately. Ambassador Kyung-soo replied quietly. A new voice joined the conversation. Captain Soo-jin, another human officer who had been promoted to handle diplomatic relations, entered the chamber carrying a datapad. "Gentlemen, I have news that might interest you," she announced. "We've just received word that the Hegemony Coalition has agreed to adopt our anti-slavery protocols. They're also requesting human assistance in upgrading their defense capabilities." Chairman Valtar looked surprised. The Hegemony Coalition was one of the largest political groups in the galaxy, representing nearly 100 different species. If they were adopting human military protocols, it meant the balance of power was shifting dramatically. "How many other species have made similar requests?" he asked. 47 so far," Captain Sujin replied. "Most of them want help upgrading their defenses against raiders. Some want to join our patrol networks. A few have asked for human ships to be stationed permanently in their systems." General Wu Jin leaned back in his chair with a slight smile. "It seems that once people see what effective protection looks like, they want it for themselves." Chairman Veltar sighed deeply. He had spent his entire life believing in the power of careful diplomacy and slow consensus building, but the events of the past 6 months had shown him that sometimes those methods were not enough. "Very well," he said finally. "The Council will adopt your new protocols. But I want guarantees that human forces will not abuse their new authority." "You have them," Ambassador Kyung-soo assured him. "Human ships will operate under strict rules of engagement. We will not attack unless attacked first or unless civilians are in immediate danger from hostile forces." On the Retribution, Engineer Yujin was working on plans for the next phase of human expansion into space. Unlike the first generation of human ships that had been designed for exploration, these new vessels would be built specifically for keeping the peace in a dangerous galaxy. "Captain Jinho," she said as she brought her plans to the bridge, "I've finished the designs for the new patrol cruisers. They're smaller and faster than the Retribution, but they carry enough firepower to handle most threats." Captain Jinho studied the ship designs with approval. Each vessel was sleek and efficient, designed to respond quickly to distress calls across the galaxy. But more importantly, they were built to work together with alien vessels rather than replacing them entirely. "How many can we build with current resources?" he asked. "Earth can produce 24 within the next year. But if we establish shipyards and allied systems, we could double that number." Dr. Yunji looked up from her research station. "Captain, I've been analyzing the long-term effects of our actions. The galaxy is definitely becoming safer for civilian shipping. Piracy rates have dropped by 60% in systems where human ships are known to patrol. And the psychological effects?" Captain Jinho asked. "Even more significant. Species that used to see raiders as an unavoidable fact of life now believe that protection is possible. They're investing in their own defenses and cooperating with each other in ways they never did before." Lieutenant Colonel Minho joined the conversation from his position at the tactical station. "Captain, we're receiving reports that several raider groups have disbanded entirely. Apparently, the word has spread that attacking civilian ships brings human attention, and no one wants that." Captain Jinho nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what he had hoped would happen. Effective deterrence was always better than having to fight actual battles. Down in the medical bay, the last of the rescued colonists were receiving final checkups before returning to civilian life. Many had chosen to settle on new worlds closer to Earth, where human protection was more readily available. Others had decided to join the military, wanting to help protect future colonists from the fate they had suffered. Captain So Young visited the medical bay to speak with the families who were preparing to leave. As someone who had shared their experience as a prisoner, she understood what they were going through better than most. "The nightmares will fade," she told a group of children who had been separated from their families during captivity. "But the strength you found to survive will stay with you forever. Use that strength to build something better." One of the children, a little girl named Yumi who had spent 3 months working in alien mines, looked up at Captain So Young with serious eyes. "Will you make sure this never happens to other children?" "That's exactly what we're going to do," Captain So Young promised. As the months passed, the galaxy slowly adapted to its new reality. The Galactic Council's old system of careful diplomacy and slow responses was replaced by something more effective, the knowledge that harming innocent people would bring swift and overwhelming retaliation. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through military force. Instead, they had shown everyone what was possible when good people were willing to fight for what was right. Other species began to adopt human military tactics and organizational methods. More importantly, they began to adopt human values about protecting the weak and innocent. The message was clear across 1,000 worlds. The galaxy was under new management, and the new management believed that every